Riley and Ava are among the top 300 student researchers in the entire country. The research that they're doing and have done is legitimately scholarly research. Most people who have completed, no student who has completed a bachelor's has done this type of research. Very few students that have completed masters have done this type of research. A lot of people who have completed doctorates have not come close to what they have done as sophomores, juniors, and seniors. And we're glad to allow them to tell you a little bit about what they've been working on. And I'm confident it's going to blow your mind. So we'll let Riley and Ava tell you about their programs.
Hi, my name is Riley Heating. For my ASR project, I studied how climate change impacts hurricanes, specifically in the northeastern United States. So I used a climate model to simulate hurricanes under a future climate and compared that to past hurricane tracks to see how climate change was influencing specific variables in hurricanes. And I think this research is really important because climate change has become such a prevalent issue in our society. It causes a lot of damage to infrastructure and loss of life. And as the high schoolers were talking about, people are still being impacted by hurricanes like Hurricane Ida. So it's not only important for the entire United States, but in our community.
Hi, my name is Ava Sapasaris, and I'm a senior. First off, I would like to thank Dr. Glass and Dr. Capuano and the entire Eastchester School Board for recognizing my research. I'd also like to say that being where I am today would not have been possible without Advanced Science Research, a 3-year honors course offered here at Eastchester High School. In ASR, I started my research on breast cancer screening, specifically disparities faced by underrepresented populations right here in New York City. I discovered that when breast cancer screening is accessible through mobile mammography, women of underrepresented patient populations are able to be screened for breast cancer at no cost. As a result of my study, I discovered that 1,627 women in New York City were screened for breast cancer when breast cancer screening is free. I was able to publish my study and an additional review on this information. As a result, I also formed my own non-for-profit, Uniting Against Breast Cancer, which lists all the dates of free screening services across New York City. Because I thought, once we have this information, we have to do something with it and put it in one place that's accessible for everyone. So congratulations to Riley, and I'm so excited to have my efforts recognized. Thank you.
Isn't that impressive? Unbelievable. And congratulations to your parents as well. You all must be so proud of what they've accomplished. I'm not sure, but if Riley chooses, we'll hear her name at NASA one day. And Ava will probably be at Sloan Kettering if she chooses, if they're fortunate enough to get her there. Our advanced science research program began at Eastchester in 2001 under the direction of Mr. Ed Gruber, and has been overseen by Mr. Garicki until his tragic passing earlier this year. Mr. Gruber has graciously been helping our seniors since Thanksgiving, and I wanted to give them both credit for helping our students get to these heights. And again, congratulations to Riley and Ava. We couldn't be prouder of what you've accomplished, and it's definitely a feather in the cap of the Eastchester School District. And as Ava said, we're grateful that the district supports this program, allowing our students to really spread their wings in a way and achieve great heights. Thank you, and thank you for letting us honor them tonight.
And we appreciate very much your being here tonight and our students for their tremendous accomplishments. It just gives me a little glimpse of, as we move into a strategic planning phase that we've just completed, where we'll be able to expand, I think, more opportunities along the lines of these as we go forward. And while I'm in the spirit of superintendent's report, which, as I know, is not really on the agenda, I just wanted to remind everybody, of course, that we are voting now. Right now, polls close close at 9 tonight.
Yes, another hour.
Another hour. So if you have not voted, I would recommend you please consider doing so. Please get out to the polls as an Eastchester resident and exercise that right on the proposal we have before you. Also want to remind everybody that you've started to receive notices about what's coming in terms of some of the changes from the resolution that was passed at the last board meeting. So we started to make some changes to our lunch, having more students eat normally in the cafeteria. Parents were able to come in on Valentine's Day, room parents at the elementary schools. So these are some of the changes that we're just gradually moving toward, getting back to a safe, gradual situation as we've been moving. We're kind of looking at a post-COVID world, hopefully soon. And we are awaiting a ruling from the governor or at the state level on masks here in the next several weeks. And we're anticipating that we'll be having masks optional very soon as a result of that word, which we expect later in February or perhaps early March, whenever that word comes down. And we're preparing for that, so messaging will be coming to our staff and to our families about what that world will look like and what the expectations will be in that world, including students being freely able to wear masks or not wear masks according to the choice that they and their families make. So thank you.
All right, thank you, Dr. Glass. And Ava and Riley, on behalf of the board, and I'll let anybody else jump on this if they want, thank you very much. Your hard work has obviously borne fruit, and you're a credit to the community, the school, the town, everything about you we're so proud of. So just thank you very much, okay? Would anyone else like to, or did I speak for everybody? Okay. Great job, girls. Thank you. Okay. Next, we have comments from the public on agenda items only. So if anyone would like to come up and speak about anything that's on the agenda, please do so. I just want to remind you that we're trying to wrap this up by 9 o'clock because we have to go next door and accept the vote count. And at the end of this meeting, we'll suspend the meeting. We'll go over to the middle school gym. We'll wait for the final vote count. Once the final vote count's determined, we're going to open up our meeting over there. We will formally accept the vote, and hopefully it'll be out on the website pretty quick after that. Usually is. So, all right. So, no comments on the agenda? Fine. I'll start this way. Cheryl, would you like to move the consent agenda? Does anyone have anything on the consent agenda they want removed that they haven't seen or?
We have board committee reports.
I'm sorry? Thank you.
I have a board committee report.
Excellent. Thank you.
Just real quick, an update from the Education and Technology Committee, because I've been fielding some questions on the student portal or student parent portal rollout. So at the last meeting of the Education and Technology Committee, it was confirmed that a student grade book will be rolled out for grades 6 through 12 at the start of next year. Community members, so that grade book, it will be determined with department chairs or building principals what will be available for instructors to use, but examples of categories that would be available to families would include tests, quizzes, homework, projects, class participation, labs, etc. So students and their families can track student progress and know what things are missing and how students are doing. Community members are invited to go to our website. You could navigate to departments, technology, and ed tech professional development to see the comprehensive professional development happening this year, including several sessions on using the gradebook, so to ensure that all teachers are comfortable meaningfully accessing the affordances of the program, which will certainly help strengthen home support of student progress. And I just want to thank Bill Blum, Scott Wynn, the ed tech facilitators, particularly from the middle school and high school where this is being rolled out first, all the teachers supporting this initiative, as well as members of the PTA units who helped advocate for it. Special shout out to Bernadette Mannion, who's been advocating for this on behalf of the PTAs. I also just want to quickly recognize the boys swim team. So after only 4 years, the board, some people who were on the board then or currently on the board approved a brand new swim team, the boys swim team. Eastchester male swimmers have had a huge success at sectionals just last week. So after only 4 years, Coach Letty has brought the team to a really competitive level. I want to recognize Coach Letty and senior swimmer and co-captain Francesco Assalone, who won the 100-yard breaststroke in sectionals, and a lot of up-and-coming swimmers. So it looks like a really strong future for the team. And after only 4 years, it's really impressive. So I just wanted to recognize that team.
Okay, thank you. Any other board committee reports? Anybody? Yes, Chrissy?
I'll do the Waverly Board Committee. The Waverly PTA has been doing some amazing things for the youngest learners. Their holiday gift to Waverly were new fun activities and games for indoor recess. And the PTA has been hosting some special Zoom activities for the children, a pizza cooking Zoom, drawing and cartooning. The Sweetheart Dance will be coming up on Saturday, February 26th at Molinos, which is always a really nice, fun event. And spring after-school clubs will be starting in March. They're having a drama club with Miss Bats, a coding and programming club, robotics, art club, magic club, and they just had a World Read Aloud Day where students at the high school read virtually to the Waverly students, and they participated in the One School, One Book program. And they read the book, The World Needs More Purple People, which is a story about embracing what makes you special and sharing your best self with the world. So they're doing some great things at the Waverly PTA.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? No? 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 Okay. All right. Okay, consent agenda. Cheryl, would you like to move the consent agenda?
Be it resolved that the Board of Education approves the consent agenda, which includes the following: 9 minutes, 10 personnel agenda, 11 Committee on Preschool Education, Special Education recommendations, and 12 business office recommendations.
Okay, is there a second? Christie? Sure. Okay, all in favor? That's everybody? Okay. So next item is other business item. Was 13 on that? No. Okay. The approval of the school calendar. Jackie, would you want to move that one?
Sure. Be it resolved that the Board of Education hereby approves the 2022-2023 school calendar as per the attached.
Okay. Jonah, you want to second that one? Sure. Anybody have any questions on the school calendar? I know there always are questions. Anybody? Judah.
I'll just make my annual comment that there is always some confusion surrounding the emergency closure days. You hear this from me every year. So if we have no emergency closures, then we get those 2 extra days, and then after those 2 extra days, we start to remove days from vacations to make up if we have more than 2 closures. So the language is a little bit awkward because of the way, there are snow days or closure days, and and we sort of pre-allocate for 2 of them. And that's always been a request to see if we could communicate that better. So I'll just make sure everyone understands it.
Thank you, Judah. Yeah, I try to look for better language every year, and it seems to be this is kind of where we are, but I appreciate the clarification.
I get it, and I appreciate it. And I think we've had 2 closures this year, so this year we won't have a long Memorial Day weekend, but we are so far, unless we have more closures, we're not losing any vacation either. So it worked out perfectly this year.
Okay, any other comments on the calendar?
I just had a quick question. I see we have 5 superintendent conference days built into this calendar this year as next year as we had this year, so I think that's great. Did we used to have 182 days built into the calendar for students, or was it always 181, but we can't fall below 180? That's when we, okay.
Right, so the reason for
for the extra day, both this year and next year, has to do with the addition of Juneteenth as a holiday. So the teacher contract calls for 186 days. So we added an additional day in August, which doesn't take away a student day, but adds a day for professional development with staff. So it's a great addition that we're very pleased to be able to get.
Okay, any other comments? All right, school opens on September 6th. Put that on your calendars. Okay, all in favor? Okay, that's everybody. Okay, let me go back to okay, we did the school calendar. Certification of the special meeting vote, that's later? Later. Okay, so we're gonna defer that, right? Yeah, no. Yes, we're gonna move up comments from the public. Okay, so if there's any comments from the public on non-agenda items, please come up.
Good evening. Suzanne Johnson, 14 Innisfree. I don't want to keep bringing this up, but despite the unremarkable presentation by the DEI task force, it appears there was a failure to explain the true extent of DEI in our district today. Many in the community are still concerned that parental rights are being circumvented because of the lack of transparency. Recently, there was a presentation on the five-year strategic plan by an organization called Ed Advance. According to the presenter, this plan was devised by a small fraction of parents, teachers, and administrators in 2019. And as of 2022, it's now written in stone. Although no one came out and said it, it appears that this plan will disseminate DEI directives to all parties, including the students, parents, educators, administrators, and the community. If tonight's vote passes, we will eventually learn how the $76 million will provide the resources for DEI to completely be immersed. Why else would board members refer to the infrastructure bond as an essential design component? This board has a moral duty to oversee policy and protect innocent children from indoctrination. This indoctrination will happen with the help of social-emotional learning and subtle curriculum changes. Parents may start to notice that merit is no longer relevant in academics. Instead, race and gender will be prioritized. The new vision statement for technology in the district includes a focus on new and non-traditional ideas. The district's 5-year strategic plan promises to graduate not individuals, but products of a new collective. In time, this well-trained army of activists will fundamentally reshape our culture, society, and country as we know it. This is not the kind of education we deserve. This past weekend, the Wall Street Journal ran an article entitled, "Inside the Woke Indoctrination Machine." If you missed it, I have hard copies here to pass out to board members. You can read the article for yourself, but I'll boil it down for you. DEI is a dangerous ideology in our schools. Thank you.
Yeah, you can leave them there. Thank you.
The Argashi Garth Road. Pfizer trial for 12 to 15-year-olds contained a small group of 1,131 vaccine recipients. In it, there was at least one severe adverse event. Maddie DeGaray was 12-year-old at the time when she received her second shot on January 21. Within 24 hours, she was hospitalized with agonizing pain. Over the course of months, she was hospitalized dozens of times when she suffered a loss of feeling from the waist down, ability to eat, bowel and bladder control, memory loss. She had seizures, erratic blood pressure, verbal and motor tics. For the past 11 months, she has been wheelchair-bound and fed through a tube. She's on course of becoming quadriplegic. What makes this important is that this shows that around 1 in 1,100 children could suffer a permanent disability from the vaccine. In comparison, according to CDC data, 8 per 100,000, or 1 in 12,500 children are hospitalized with COVID. For my speech last time, 66 children 5 to 11 died with COVID last year, with a rate of 2 per million per CDC. The vast majority of these cases had existing comorbidities, and many of them have died with COVID instead of from COVID. After adjusting for this, we can easily say that the chances of a child to die from COVID is far less than 1 in a million. From all this, we can infer that the risk of vaccine-induced permanent injury in children is 11 times higher than the risk of hospitalization of children, 440 times the risk of child death with COVID, and thousands of times the risk of a child death caused by COVID. Pfizer reported Maddie's case to the FDA as merely functional abdominal pain, downplaying her severity and blaming it on her anxiety and not the vaccine. Maddie's family were so excited for the clinical trial that all 3 children volunteered for it. They were pro-vax and wanted to contribute to the elimination of COVID. After the incident, they have been censored from YouTube, their videos have been taken down, and their social media accounts have repeatedly been deleted. They have no voice. They are victims and are being blamed for it. At the very least, Maddie's condition needs to be investigated further, as this is a crucial factor for risk-benefit analysis. As if injury is found to be caused by the shot, it would prove that the vaccine risks by far outweigh the benefits, that they would cause many permanent injuries and deaths for every child they may save from COVID. About masks, multiple studies show they are harmful. Not one solid study shows they are effective against this virus, including N95. The only mask that has been shown to be effective is the P100 mask, the one that seals the whole face, including eyes. Apparently, eyes are one of the entry points of the virus. Hence, other masks are completely ineffective. Legislators voted yesterday to keep the mandate, but they neglected to consider that the average 7-day positivity rate is 20 times less than a few weeks ago. If hospitals have barely any COVID cases, then why continue the mask mandate? After all, we were told that lockdowns exist to ensure COVID does not overwhelm hospitals. This is why we can't rely on flip-flopping politicians to make decisions for our children that causes them harm. We need to stop harming our children. We need to stop the child abuse. Make masks optional. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, Eileen DeLucia, 16 Vassar Place. I'm tempted to quote my cousin Vinny and say, everything that guy just said is BS, but I won't use swear words here, so I won't. I wasn't planning on speaking tonight, so please forgive me for coming off the cuff. I want to applaud the district and the board for the work it's doing to implement DEI programming and social emotional learning programming. I think the plan that we have thus far is a step in the right direction. I think Eastchester as a district would do well to do even more, but I'm so glad to see that we're taking some steps at all. Characterizing DEI as indoctrination is not only inflammatory and false, it's dangerous. The world is going to move on with Eastchester behind it if we don't do our own due diligence in connection with DEI. Our students deserve it, our children deserve it, and they will be better prepared for the world ahead of them if they come from a district that embraces DEI wholeheartedly. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, nobody else? All righty, thank you. Okay, next item. Dr. Glass, did you have any comments you wanted to make on this, or no? You're okay? Because then I'm going to move to the advocacy letter. Sure.
There were a few comments about the strategic plan and DEI plan. Are there next steps for the board on this? I know there was some confusion about whether we're going to accept it or not. Should we have a discussion? Is there, I mean, I know I had a couple of concerns about the strategic plan. How are we going to go about that? Is it just a done deal? What are we doing?
Well, certainly, if the board would like to have more discussion on any of those points, the plan, we certainly can. The board commissioned us to, at my request, to engage in the process that we presented to you. What that typically does is it gives you a plan that is general enough that there's some, you generally have what you got, right? You have areas of emphasis, you have some general goals, you have a revised mission statement and a profile of a graduate kind of document in place. Our next work, and I say our next work, usually the administration will usually go in and say, here are the areas where we think we need to begin, and we would usually present those to you. So, if you want to discuss some of those or suggest some of those as we're doing that work, feel free. And there always will come, there's a lot of depth and complexity to the work, so as you get into some of the specific areas and you start to put action plans in place, it may surface additional questions or preferences on the part of, board members. And so if you have those, we can always talk about them. From my perspective, you don't need to do anything more to accept or anything, those things. But I think we would work as a team as we work through the action planning on them. If certainly there are any parts of what we have so far that you want to, adjust sort of in the structure of what we've given you, this would be the time to start talking about that. I've not really heard that necessarily, but if that's out there, we should talk about that. And different boards do it different ways. I've seen it where boards accept it and maybe accept parts of it and don't accept parts of it, or accept all of it and then look at it as a living document and adjust it as you go. That's typically how I do it. But I'm open to whatever you'd like to do. And if there's certain parts we want to talk about, I think we should catalog those and then we can structure some discussion around them.
I would like to have some board time, maybe in an upcoming meeting.
My take on it would be that, those recommendations were presented by the Strategic Planning Committee. The DEI was presented by the DEI Committee. And now the board has to dedicate some time to digest it, to go through it, study it, see what we all feel is appropriate, not appropriate, have a meeting, not one meeting, but multiple meetings, possibly on each one, and see what we want to do with those recommendations. They're not installed. This is my take, and this is our decision. But I think the way we have to do this is we take this, and we're the representatives of the community, and we have to go through it, see what we want to tweak, how we want to tweak it, work with the district like we would do in any other change in any policy or anything else that we would be doing as a district. So I think that would be the next step. So I think we need to put some time on the calendar, have a meeting, but I'll throw it out to you guys. I mean, anybody disagree with that approach?
No, I agree. And I guess Dr. Glass, what was the timing, that you would expect any sort of definitive feedback? I'm assuming that with each of the principles that were reviewed from your strategic plan and even DEI, that there are some maybe granular milestones, to achieve within a certain time frame, and I guess there's many project plans or task lists to accomplish. I don't know, just
right. We would put together an action plan, on that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think the question I'm hearing is, are there pieces of, that plan is going to take, years to do, right? So much as I did a meeting or two ago when we talked about the DEI and I said, these are the themes that I see, right? And I gave those to you. That was by design, right? To see if, and a lot of that was based on conversations that we've had even at this table and individually, right? Where we feel like the leverage points are. I gave you a survey. I did a survey with the administrators. and I had 4 or 5 areas where I would like to begin. Student voice, we have the Eastchester theme, and we have some committees working on some of those. So, I would move forward with a plan on that, and then that would be built into future action plans, just like I gave you an action plan with the timelines and deliverables for this year. We're still working that plan for this year. We'll start now from this moment working, adding to this year's plans and building out next year's plans, based on that. Similarly with the strategic plan, that's a little more complicated work. He laid out 3 big buckets, and the first bucket is where we wanted to start, which is awareness, like working with the staff on some of the awareness and of what the profile of a graduate is. What is the definition of deep learning, right? That's where you really have to start. So if there's something in the definition of deep learning, if there's something in the profile of a graduate, I would say those are the areas where we need to have good agreement on what it is, unpacking what it is and what it really looks like. And I would say we should start that immediately, right now through the end of the year. And then, if there's anything in there you want to emphasize or de-emphasize, then, you should let us know then. So,
Thank you.
Those would be the parts, right? The 10 areas that are in there, the skills and dispositions, and then the definition of deep learning. So we want to get going on that first. Even though we have them, people don't know what they are and they don't know what they mean, right? So, and we can't do them all. So we might pick, say, critical thinking, right, as one, or something like that. Civic engagement, perhaps. But I don't want to focus on all of them at once. And then when you start to focus on, say, 2 or 3 of them that you want to work on over the next year or 2, you drill down into those. And as you do, things will come up that you'll want to say, like, well, what is the implication of doing that? What does that mean if we do that? And what does that look like? And if we do it, how does that play out for all different kinds of learners in our system? At what levels, how does that play out? That's really the focus of it. That's what we're trying to make it much clearer, rather than an esoteric, broad brush, statement. We want to start to bring it to life and talk about what it really looks like. So this is a natural part of the process, and I think along that way you'll have questions, you'll have wonderings, you'll have perhaps additional directive for us. So your focus at the board level would be that 30,000-foot level. If there's an area you really like, or an area you really want to slow down on, or really pick, like not go to right away, that's the direction that I would want to have. So based on what you've been given, right, that long document, I would start to look at not the stuff in the beginning of the document, but the stuff that goes into the skills, dispositions, mission, and then the 3 goal area buckets. And they're sort of the first one, I think, particularly, because that's where we are going to start. And definition of deep learning. So we've started to unpack that. We've been wondering about, there are some pre-existing definitions of deep learning. There are groups that do deep learning work. And we've been considering, do we want to recommend to you that we start with those definitions? So if we presented to you a definition and gave it a little more clarity, that would be something for you to react to. So I tend to think that my role is to not just say, well, broad brush, here it is, what do you want to do? But to say, we've thought about this, here's a straw design for you to think about. Let's dig into this and see is this what you had in mind? And then you can say yes or no, or add to it and adjust our thinking. Is that helpful?
That's, yes.
So that'll start right away.
Yeah. There's a lot. There's a lot to the whole program.
I think we probably should, maybe at each meeting going forward, start to address at least one of these issues that we think is a top issue, and talk it out and see if we get everybody, thinking in the same direction on it, and we'll just do them one at a time, and we'll pick it apart a little at a time.
You can do that.
The board, right? That's almost kind of the point, right? Is that really as a board, we're supposed to be setting policy for what the vision of this district is supposed to look like. And, today and over the past few years or whatever, we've been focusing on micromanaging little issues that have come up because those are the hot items at the moment. But the reality of it is, as a board, we're supposed to be responsible for creating a vision and figuring out what our school should be doing when it comes to education. And that's a big part of what the strategic plan is. So, I acknowledge that, the committee, I was on the committee, right? So I have sort of an inside view because I participated in it. But at the same time, I acknowledge that only a couple of the board members were on that committee. And so as a board, we need to figure out and parse that thing that was presented, and the DEI committee also. I mean, we need to parse those and figure out how those fit into our vision of what Eastchester looks like, of what an Eastchester graduate looks like. Do we want to have, two Regeneron Award winners at a 300 every year? I think that's something we want to do. Do we want to deal with, services for special needs students? And what do we want to do about the other 80%, so to speak, of our student population that may not be, the top kids and may not be the special needs kids? There's everything in between, and we need to have a vision for how we're going to do the best we can for each one of those kids. And that was a big part of what we were trying to accomplish with the strategic planning committee. So, I think it makes sense for us to. I think that idea of kind of chipping away a little bit at every meeting, I think that's great because that's what we should be talking about is education.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's put that on the, on the plan for maybe into the next meeting we could start that. Okay? Sure. Okay, last item before we're going to recess for the vote is we had a possible discussion about doing an advocacy letter to the governor similar to Tuckahoe's. And it came up that Tuckahoe had done one maybe about 10 days ago. And we were given a copy of it, and some people, wanted to do something similar, wanted to jump onto that. So I just put this on the agenda so that we could talk it out and see if we as a board want to do that. And I'm just throwing it out there. So let's talk it out. Let's talk it out. Who wants to go first? Anybody? You want to start, or you want me to start? Here's where we are. A couple of board members took a shot at creating a draft based on the Tuckahoe letter. It's not the same as the Tuckahoe letter, but it's fairly similar. They sent it to me, I got it, and similar to the last advocacy letter, what I think we should do is we should take that letter, circulate it amongst ourselves, and see if we can make it such that we could get as many people as possible to agree to it. That being said, not everyone has seen this letter yet. What I think we should do is we'll distribute it. We'll distribute it this week. We've got plenty of time between now and the end of the month. Does this expire at the end of the month? When does it expire?
No, it's indefinite. It's indefinite.
It's been extended now.
By who? By
the governor.
Can you help? Wait until your mic kicks in.
It's 60 days, but then there's other legislation that's going to make it permanent, so the DOH can turn it on and off at will.
Now, is that the governor's extension, or because I don't know. Is that the governor's extension or the DOH?
The emergency regulation under which all the masking is done has been extended for 60 days. So that goes, I think, until like April.
I actually read that, but
the governor committed to, reevaluating because they can always turn it on and off under the regulations. The regulation itself is going until April, and there's another one that's going to be permanent. I'm sure it's going to go, unless it's challenged, with the court case or whatever.
I read that. I read that the governor extended her powers for another 60 days.
Right.
I didn't read anything in there about extending a mask mandate. Now, in theory, if her powers are extended, she could do whatever she wants with the mask mandate. That's the way I read it. Now, I'm not a lawyer, I'm not an expert. So the governor extending her powers is a completely separate issue, okay? That's an issue where and please, everybody pipe in here, but my opinion is, I don't think the governor should be a dictator, and I think we got to go to our elected representatives as individuals, not as a school board, because it's not a school board issue, and get our representatives to take back Albany from the governor.
Well,
but that's my opinion.
I do think that, we might consider advocating to our representatives. There was, as one speaker mentioned, there was a vote yesterday on an amendment that would have removed the mask mandate, notwithstanding the governor's actions. And our own Senator Shelley Mayer, voted to keep the mask. So I would also consider addressing a letter to her to let her know that we don't want the masks anymore, and that she should, start trying to take back, at least in that one sphere, take back the power from the executive.
She has a legislative forum going on Thursday evening, I believe. Thursday, at, I think it's 6 o'clock, I'm not sure. I think it's a Zoom call. Could you check on that, Doc? But, there's a lot of stuff going on. And we were operating under the assumption, we as a board, that the mask mandate was going to expire at some point very soon. Well, I was.
I was not assuming.
Okay, you think she's going to keep it forever. I get that. But what's that? Thursday, is that open to the public? Is that?
You have to pre-register.
One second. Is that open to the public, or is that an invite call? Do you know?
I'll have to check, but I have it on my calendar. But I think you have to pre-register, I think. I'll see if I can find the link.
Okay. Chrissy, you wanted to say something?
Sure. On February 8th, Tuckahoe sent an advocacy letter to the governor. And what Tuckahoe did is they took a stand. And I admire them for that. They said masks are negatively impacting our students' communication, learning, and social and emotional well-being. And because of that, they asked the governor to let the mandate expire and let it be parent choice. Now, we could just sit back and wait and see what happens, or we can be leaders. And I think Tuckahoe, what they did, I admire them, and I would like to be leaders too. We teach our children to be leaders and not followers. We teach our kids to take a stand. Why can't we take a stand for our children? Why can't we be leaders and show our kids and lead by example?
That's why we're talking about it.
Right, but I sent a draft on February 9th, so, my concern is this letter needs to go out. It's very time sensitive because she's already extended the mandate, and we don't know for how long. And I think that we need to take a stand for our children. We know that this is impacting them. We know it.
I want to hear everybody's opinion. Steve, you want to go?
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay.
Now you
can. We sent a letter. The board came to consensus and sent a letter to both the governor and I believe Senator Shelley Mayer was on there, Assemblywoman Amy Paulin was on there. So we sent a letter back in January on this topic, amongst others, and we came to consensus on language and on the issue itself. So I think, I'm not sure why we would revisit with a different letter. I would recommend if we want to send a letter again, we resend the letter. But we did send one in January on this topic.
Okay.
So it might be the fastest thing to do.
Why don't I suggest that we just take that same letter and edit it to make it more current, because that was written way back when, before we were so close to it expiring. Now it looks like it's expiring, and it looks like the executive powers were extended, and it might not in effect expire. She might not let it expire. So why don't we take a shot at, I'm just throwing this out as an idea. Hang on. Did we take a shot at taking that, rewording it, taking it and coming up with something and sharing it with everybody, and we send something out again, later this week? I'll just throw that out as an example. Who hasn't? Chrissy, I'll go back to you, but anybody else? Jackie, do you want to go?
Okay, so I also think that it needs to be sent out by Friday, since then we break, and...
Yeah, but the government does not shut down next week. We are, but they're not.
We break, right, but then it wouldn't be sent out until March if we don't, as a district,
we could send something out next week.
Okay. So yeah, in January, when we sent that letter was started, that the letter was originally drafted in, I believe, November. And it took a very long time to get the letter out because we all wanted to reach consensus on the wording. And I know I'll speak for myself that I was not happy with the final wording. I thought the wording was too soft to try to appease everybody. So I think that the wording for this letter needs to be much stronger and ask her to let the mandate expire, because when we see that the mandates are dropping in all of the countries and states around us, it would really have us all in denial to not act like the kids are being used as pawns in this. So we need to absolutely have stronger wording and send it out because it is a time-sensitive issue. And also regarding the January letter, things were in a different state at that point. We can see that cases are dropping, they're plummeting now. So I think that we need to take a stand, and I absolutely agree with Chrissy that we should be leaders like Tuckahoe, and that I admire them for that.
Okay. Somebody else?
I just want to say that letter included a bunch of things about test to stay. That letter,
We'd have to take all of that out because it doesn't apply anymore, obviously.
I think my draft is pretty good because it talks about how our other neighboring states have dropped the mandate, and it also gives a reason why we think that this mandate should expire. We have a 95.6% vaccination rate here in Eastchester. So I don't think that this advocacy letter, which is pretty much based on Tuckahoe, is anything terribly controversial. We're just saying we have a 95.6 vaccination rate. Other neighboring states are doing this. We're just asking for parent choice and to end the mandate. It's.
Okay. Somebody?
I feel like.
Wait until you.
I'm sorry.
No,
I
it's
feel
okay.
like this governor, I mean, we don't have any control, but has done a bait and switch on the state in that we were always told that, that the former governor would follow in direct suit with the neighboring tri-state area, of which the tri-state area has adopted parental choice. And we want to hold her feet to the carpet, that we haven't forgotten that as a state constituent. And I think advocating in that way with a letter that substantiates the claims that we're making here, we're not making this stuff up. And again, I have to agree with Jackie, Chrissy, Jonah, thanks for bringing it up, that, Tuckahoe, they went out there and put it out there, no problem. No problem with putting a statement out there on behalf of the board.
Okay.
So.
You want to go next? I just wanted to make one quick comment. As far as Tuckahoe took a stand, but Eastchester took a stand too. We passed a resolution that no other district in the county passed. Am I correct on that? Or did anybody else do something similar?
I'm not aware of anything similar.
Okay. I don't think any other school district in the county passed a resolution like we did. Okay? I don't see anybody copying us, which is, I'm not asking them to, and I'm not saying that we're right and they're wrong, but, we did something that was pretty important. At least we felt it was strong enough for us. We as a group, okay, took a stand on something, and we're standing out there alone. No one else has done that yet, okay? Others might. So to say that Tuckahoe took a stand, and I do commend them for taking a stand, okay? But we don't have to do exactly what they did. We did something different. Nobody's followed us on that. I'm all okay with doing another advocacy letter. I just want to put that out there. But to say that they did something and we didn't is it's not unfair, but it's not exactly accurate, is what I'm saying, okay? So I think, Cheryl, did you want to go next, or go ahead, Jackie.
It is possible that other districts might be doing similar things with
I hope they are.
with regard to the resolution, but didn't need or were asked for a board resolution. So I'm just saying we might not be standing out there alone. Others might just have had the administration direct.
And that could be. But as far as we know, we're the only one who's done a resolution similar to that.
Right, a resolution, but
Yeah.
because we were asked to do a resolution to direct the administration to proceed with that.
It didn't need to be, it wasn't necessary.
Yeah.
Well, I'm saying other districts might not have found it to be necessary.
We passed that resolution because we all agreed that that's what we wanted to do as a district. It was more of a policy statement than a direction to the administration. Okay? It was a policy statement that allowed them to do what they have to do based on what we want them to do.
Okay.
So,
And just one last point.
and that was an important thing to do. I mean, let's give ourselves credit for that. Okay?
Oh, no,
Now we want to
I
do something
agree. It was
else.
a very important thing
And
for
that's
us to do.
fine. We could do something else as well, but let's not, let's not poo-poo the fact of what we did
Right,
and
I just don't
accomplished.
want to go back and forth for the wording, on the wording for 2 weeks to the point where the wording doesn't mean anything, just to appease everybody. So I'm just putting that out there.
I hear you. I hear you. Anybody else want to?
I would just echo comments that I made when we were talking about the January 1, and that is, I think our community is divided on this issue. And so I would have reservations about taking a particular stand one way or the other as a district, because we as a school board represent 20,000 residents in our district. And I don't believe that 20,000 or even 15,000 feel one way or the other. I think it's much more divided than that and much more even than that. And so I would be reluctant to take a particularly strong stand as a school board, right? As individuals, I think we should be writing to our elected officials in Albany who have the authority and power to make these changes. But I think as a school board, and I said this back in January, that's sort of my concern, is that we're supposed to represent the 20,000 people, and if there's 12,000 on one side of the issue, 8,000 on the other, or 10 and 10, or whatever it happens to be, I don't know that we as a board should be representing all 20,000 in that position.
I hear you, but just to put it out there, though, that I think parental choice actually does represent everybody, because no one should be forcing someone else's child to do what those parents don't want them to do.
I also think that, we're not here to necessarily represent the community. We're here to represent the school and the students. And if we think that these masks are harming students, it's on us. Even if the community disagrees with us, it's on us to do what's right for the school and what's right for the students. I don't think that's the case. But, it shouldn't be about taking a poll of everybody.
Well, I'm going to take a different stance on that, because I do think that in representing the schools and the students, we're representing the students' families, right, all the families. So I do think it's been clear from comments that we've gotten during forums, during the special meeting last week, and the open forum right before it, from emails that we've been getting to the board, that the community is divided on this issue, pretty much 50-50. And my understanding, according to the press conference that the governor last gave, was that she's going to wait till after February break, which is next week, have 1 week to assess students, and then talk about ending the mask mandate. That's 2 weeks away. The other thing I want to say is that just as the community is divided, we are once again having a conversation about a letter that 5 of us saw around February 8th or 9th. We're talking about a draft that was circulated and shared, but I did not see that. I have not seen it yet. I'm being asked to talk about this letter and the content of a letter without having adequate time to read and digest it. And I do also think that we can be effective advocates and leaders. I absolutely agree we should. But we should be advocating for things that go beyond this same issue that we have been advocating for. We have gone around and around. I'm not willing to take up another advocacy letter about masks unless we can look at other letters. I think we should be advocating, for instance, and I've prepared a few that I'll be presenting to the board. We should be advocating for a revision of the now 15-year-old foundation aid formula. It's not enough that they're phasing in full funding. They are still, using old regional cost index from 2006 that's impacting how much money we're getting. We should be advocating for that. We should be advocating for increased targeted support in this budget cycle and beyond, addressing the student mental health crisis and responding to learning gaps created by the COVID-19 pandemic's unprecedented impact on schools. We know that there's this new fund, Recover from COVID School Program. It's in the executive budget for this year. We should be talking about how we can meaningfully access those funds, which are meant to be matching funds for federal funding, COVID relief funding. It's really important for our district, it's important for our kids. And we should be advocating for substantially expanding resources for instruction, including policies for incentivizing retention, professional development and wellness support for existing staff, and targeted assistance for hiring additional staff. We're facing a staffing crisis of unprecedented levels nationally in schools, and we need to be starting to advocate for how to access that fund. Some of those Recov funds that I mentioned are targeted towards staff support, and we need to get our fair share of that money. So these are things that are as urgent, because the budget cycle is happening now, as anything else. We need to be talking about these issues.
I agree. Cheryl, I don't think anybody would disagree with any of that, and I think that's a great start, and we should do it. You're absolutely right. You're absolutely right.
I also agree.
But because, time out, hold on.
I'll be sharing these drafts.
No, do it. Absolutely. And I mean, I think that's really good stuff. And I think there's other things we should be advocating as well, not only those. You know, that's what we're up here to do. We're up here about this. We said right from the beginning, you know, we're not a board of health. We're not a sports authority. You know, we're not, you know, benefactors of the arts or anything like that. We're a board of education, and we have to deal with educational issues. All of this stuff impacts education. Unfortunately, mask mandates impact education too, because I don't know if anybody has seen that viral video about the kids in Las Vegas when they were told that they wouldn't have to wear masks the next day, that they were dancing in the classrooms, okay? It was very moving. I'm not saying that every kid is going to react the same way or every family is going to react the same way, but you know, the mask mandate is hurting children. We know that. We can't quantify it. I can't quantify it. I'm not an expert. But you could see it. You could see it in their eyes when you look at little kids, okay? And we should be advocating for that to go away, but we should be doing these other things as well. And I couldn't agree with you more, Cheryl. So I'm sorry. So, who was next? I lost track.
So first of all, I definitely think we should be advocating for all, you know, several of the things Cheryl mentioned. And I'll look forward to seeing those letters. Regarding, you know, the amount of time that we spend on this, I'm not really sure why we're spending so much time. You know, we could just vote on this and get it over with and send out the letter. I mean, it would take 2 seconds, but we go around and around because some people just want to object to it.
But that's how the system works, Jonah. The system works that we're 9 people. We all have individual views. We all represent the families and the community members and the students. Okay, it's a 3-legged stool. We've got students, parents, and taxpayers, okay? That's what we're up here for. We're not for I'm not up here for the people who voted for me. I'm up here for everybody, as all of us are.
We're here for the school and the students.
Yeah, no, and the taxpayers and the parents, too. It's a 3-legged stool. If it's not...
According to our lawyers, though.
Not sure.
Anything we do, we are supposed to keep the student top of mind. Everything we do, the health and wellness, mental health,
it's
the whole kit and caboodle.
Yeah, absolutely. We're a board of education, and the students are entrusted to us, and we set the policies for them. So, yeah, we have to do all of this stuff, but just...
Finally, the fact that we have had a letter, I mean, our old letter, I don't even think advocated for removing the mask. It just said, oh, we want to have a metrics or something like that. I mean, that's the position now that, you know, like our Senator Shelley Mayer has taken the position, well, I just want metrics, and she voted to keep the masks in place. So if that's what we're going to say is our position, the same as her, that's not my position. My position is we need to get rid of the mask, which is what this Tuckahoe letter is saying. It was already written. We're just copying it. Let's just vote on it and send it.
Well, A, we don't have to vote to send the letter, but we do have to have consensus on the board. okay? So we have to have a majority. It's not a votable item. If we all agree to send it, we could send it. We don't have to meet in public, vote on it publicly to send a letter, okay? Because it's not an action of the district, correct? Okay? We could do that anytime we want. So if we take this draft now and we circulate it, we give everybody the ability to see it, which we didn't, and that falls on me. I didn't get it to people. My fault, okay? My bad. So everybody take a look at it, feedback your comments to me, and we'll take it from there and we'll send it out, and we'll send it out in a timely fashion. The government is open next week. The schools are closed.
This week. We should do it this week.
No, to do it this week, I'm saying, but we don't have to worry about the fact that next week's a holiday week. You know, the government is open next week.
Just a parting thought. It was really wonderful to see pictures from the Greenvale Sweetheart Dance at Lake Isle. And you had children and families who didn't have masks, and you had children and families who did have masks. And those same people, those same children, students, came to school on Monday, masked everyone. There was no choice.
Okay.
So, I mean, that's what we're trying to get to, is just the advocation of parental choice.
So let's take it from here now. We'll share the letter, make sure everybody sees it. I'll get everybody's input. I'll circulate it back to everyone, and we'll see if enough people want to send it out. Now, here's a question. I'm going to throw this out. If one or two people don't want to buy into it, do we want to send it out anyway? Or do we want to send it out with individual names and not from the Board of Ed? I'm throwing that out. I don't know. I don't have an answer to that question. We could write a letter as a personally, if it doesn't represent the district. So I'm just asking that question. I'm not making any suggestions. Thoughts? Yes? No?
I think
When we come to it, we got
all right, let's
6
cross that
minutes
bridge
to
when we
get,
come to it.
get over to the
Because we got to go next door in 10 minutes. Okay? So we'll do that. Chrissy,
I just want to
last
say one
comment.
final thing, that Cheryl, those all sound like great things to advocate for, and I'm happy to take a look at that. I just don't want to undermine the importance of this, and also just say that I don't think Tuckahoe is choosing sides. What Tuckahoe is doing as a school district, as a superintendent, as a board, they are just saying that they are seeing the masks impose a cost on their students. That's not picking sides. They're saying that objectively. Okay? I just want to make that very clear, that I don't think they're picking sides. They're saying this is what we're seeing.
But just to play devil's advocate to that, couldn't you also say that you could take the position that we are seeing as a school district and as a board very little transmission in schools, and that we believe that is due to the mitigation factors, including masks being worn in schools. That's a statement that you could make as a board about the role of masks in schools, right? Just an objective observation that other people might have about masks in schools. Do you know what I mean? So there are other kinds of statements you could make, which ultimately, at whatever statement you're making, represents an opinion, right, or a view, or a side. Do you know what I mean?
I know what you mean, but that's why from the beginning I've personally have always been against making statements tying things to positivity rates or exposure in school. So if some kid tests positive, you don't know where they got it. And to say that they didn't get it in school or they got it in school, we can't say that because we have no clue. We don't have any expertise that we can even guess at that.
But if you're seeing delays in progressing with speech therapy, we can say that that's from masks.
Correct.
We can't say necessarily that transmission is from masks because, we don't know where they got it.
So, what I was trying to say is that's why that anytime we've ever done any of the things, because even if you remember from our goal back in September, people wanted to tie it into transmission rates and percentage of the community's vax and all of that stuff. That means nothing.
Well, some of us
95% of Eastchester is vaccinated, so what? The next virus that comes out that might need a new virus, do you want to start at 0 again and then have to wait until we get back to 95? I don't know. I don't think that's the right way to go. We have to use the best information of the experts around us, not us. So, and I think in this case, this letter, New Jersey's dropping it, Connecticut's dropping it, California dropped it. I mean, come on. And New York's going to hold on to it. So I think
I think it's a no-brainer at this point. I
My
don't think that this should
my
really be
opinion
that
is
controversial,
I agree,
honestly.
but, you know, based on that, not based on 95% or transmission rates here, or, you know, you don't want to tie it to that kind of stuff, because we're not experts. We're not experts in determining those are the right things to even be looking at. But just look at everyone else around us and say, hey, come on, New York, you know, get on with it. Everyone else is doing this. And personally, I'm okay with that. You know, but so let's, yeah, we got to go next door. So, all right, let's end that.
And we're certifying it over there, is that correct? We're
We're recessing this meeting now. We are going to the gym, okay? After the vote is counted and presented to us by the district clerk, we'll open our meeting, we'll certify the vote, and close the meeting, and then we're done.
So just,
I'm sorry? Over there. We're going to do this all in the middle school gym.
So for-
anybody from the public is they're allowed to attend and watch.
yeah, just for clarity for those who are watching
Hopefully,
remotely, they won't see the
hopefully,
certification.
as soon as possible, Jackie, we'll get it up on the website, correct? Okay. The result, once it's certified, will be put on a website as soon as possible, and I presume some type of a communication will go out. Okay, but I can't control that. Okay, so we're all in sync. Anybody here want to come next door, watch the vote get counted? You're welcome. Motion to recess? Steve, Judah, thank you.